So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the Galaxy S25, the base model, after around a year. I give you my long-term experience. I think this is still going to be a great option for those of you who like to pick up phones as they get discounted, and things of that sort. This one has been getting heavy discounts already. We'll talk about some of the key specifications really quickly, get this out the way. 6.2-inch OLED display. It is 1080p, so do keep that in mind. It's not 2K. Not a big fan of that. Some previous S-line, even base models, had 2K, but the screen is not that big, so you don't really even notice it too much, but 6.2-inch, pretty thin bezels here. The phone is also rocking a 50 megapixel camera on the rear. We do have a triple camera setup as well. Those other two are also 12 and 10 megapixels. One of them is an ultra wide, one is a telephoto. And then this phone right here does have 12 gigabytes of RAM on board, which has been in my experience, pretty good with multitasking. We'll touch on that more later. Snapdragon 8 Elite chip. They're going to the 8 Elite Gen 5 this year. And this blue has just been pretty striking. Tell me you don't agree with that. Look at this blue. Like, this is classic Samsung with their blues. So I definitely loved this blue option that was on the S25. Now, 4,000 milliamp hour battery in here, not the biggest on a phone, but that's pretty sizable for this size of a display, being 1080. We'll talk how the battery did perform later in this content. But generally, a year later, I gotta say, the specs have been really nice. They've been very enjoyable. And usually this phone is found at like $499. And for $499, there's some crappier phones for that price. So definitely I like the specs a lot on this one. I just think that they should put more high-end cameras and make like a smaller S25 Pro or S26 Pro, like a smaller exact iPhone like Pro competitor, because they do cut back on a few things. So when it comes to the build, this phone is extremely thin, actually. When I first seen this, I was like, wait a minute, they're making an Edge? This phone is already near as thin as a super thin phone. 7.2 millimeters, and the thing only weighs 162 grams. For layman's terms, that's essentially nothing in your hand. It basically feels extremely light. And you can see as we turn this phone, flat edges, this thing can stand straight up on the table, no issues whatsoever. Now, the cameras are the vertical, I like to call them the traffic light cameras. The camera lenses themselves, to me, look a little bit cheaper than I would like. So I would like for them to go back to like the chrome or the shinier look around the edges. But the feel in the hand of this phone, not super smooth in the corners, but it's just a compact, lightweight beast. So it's been pretty good to use. I do like it for a one-handed experience. In addition to that, it does have the in-display fingerprint sensor. You can use this punch hole to take face unlocks. Now, that punch hole, if you actually look closely, it's actually smaller than a lot of competing Android phones. I'll actually show you my Google Pixel 10 Pro XL right here, and you'll just see the difference between those punch holes. The punch hole is just much larger on competing Android phones. So this phone actually feels like you're holding a nice compact little all screen in your hand nearly. We're not quite there, but we're not too far off either. So definitely really, I think you would really like this phone if you like a compact feel. It's also been pretty durable as well. It does have the Armor aluminum 2 frame. Aluminum is definitely a good choice for durability. I do prefer titanium overall, but this is a pretty strong frame, so I haven't had too many issues there. USB-C is fine. I like that this is still SIM card. I hope they stay with SIM cards. You'll see right there, we do have the speaker grill. And overall, the phone just held up pretty well. I have had it in a case some of the year. Sometimes I take it out. And I haven't had no screen protector on here. And if we turn the screen off, you won't see too much of an issue. As a matter of fact, let me turn off always on display. We are on One UI 8.5 for this video, but let me go ahead and turn that off and we'll take a look here. You'll see I don't really have anything to speak of with scratches. It's been pretty good in that respect without having a screen protector on it. So I've been pretty happy with it. It is Gorilla Glass Victus 2, and a glass back as well is Victus 2. So yeah, haven't had too many issues with durability. Now we talk about display. If we go right here, I do like that Samsung gives you a lot of features like eye comfort shield, adaptive color tones. They give you vivid modes and you could tweak those vivid modes in advanced settings. I've seen phones with a little bit more display settings, but they have a good suite, a good amount here. But what I really enjoyed about this display over this year is the brightness. This thing can hit 2600 nits. That's ridiculously bright. Now, I know there are phones that are peaking at much higher brightness levels these days, but when this came out, it was pretty competitive. I do think it's still a very bright screen and more than most people need. If you actually look at the specifications, the actual display is 91.2 screen to body. Basically, it feels like the display is, you're just holding a whole screen in your hand. They're really getting good at this bezel stuff. I want to see them reduce it even further though, because we're basically already there at the all screen. But I still think we could go even more by getting rid of those punch holes if they can get that display or that camera underneath the display. This has been a 120 hertz display, and it's been glorious because it actually seems to always be running in the smooth nature that I want it to be running in. I know it is a dynamic display, but I just find it to run a little bit more smooth than what I see on the Apple devices. Those tend to not feel as fast as when I'm flicking across these Samsung panels. So I definitely tend to prefer this right here. You'll notice it quite a bit when you're just kind of like scrolling through things. If we go through different sections, it tends to still stay in that 120 hertz most of the time. So I think that the only area I found that this one is not my favorite is that when you get really close to the display, I have noticed that it doesn't look quite as tack sharp as like the S25 Ultra or some other devices out there. The camera, it looks super sharp because we're shooting this in 4K, but generally, you know, it does look a little bit less dense and less sharp than some of those higher density displays. So I feel like Samsung could have went 2K here. It would have made this phone have ridiculous high pixel density, but they didn't. So 1080, not my favorite, but it didn't bother me too much either. Only if I was reading, I tend to notice, especially in darker lit scenarios, that the sharper displays are just easier on the eye. So when it comes to the software, we are running the beta software here of One UI, and man, I gotta tell you, I've been really loving One UI 8.5. This software is starting to look really polished. It's looking really fast, really slick and smooth. Icons are updating. You know, Samsung puts out some pretty good software recently. Now, for some people, if you like a minimal experience, I would still say stay away from this. They're definitely not minimal. I understand you can go ahead and make your phone minimal on pretty much any Android phone, but I'm talking about the overall experience is still very loaded with the features. It is a Samsung phone after all. You are now having the ability to change different sizes and move things around a bit more in the quick panel settings, and the AI stuff is just improving even further. You'll see little things that tell you what's going on, little AI summaries and stuff like that. Going to Galaxy AI, you'll see a bunch in here. I mean, the software also has changed a bit in the settings. You'll see the settings look a little bit different. They brought the search bar down here, but we're still in beta here on One UI 8.5. But generally, I gotta say, it's still just a very fun experience using the Samsung, but also a fast and productive experience. So having all of these split screen options, and a lot of Android phones have these modes now, so it's not like exclusive to Samsung anymore. But they were doing this a lot longer than a lot of competitors. But I just find One UI to be one of my favorite for just enjoying like features set, and you'll see it even in the camera department as well. So if I bring in this little Android man, you're gonna see a ton of features in the camera section as well. So it never seems to get like boring to me, this Samsung Galaxy S25. It's just a little bit compact. So if you want a bigger phone, this one is a little bit smaller, but you know what you're getting into when you get this, don't you? And when it comes to the performance, it's been extremely fast. I've already talked about the scrolling speed that plays into it, but the actual processor itself has been absolutely awesome. You don't usually see 12 gigs of RAM in the base model either. So this also really boosted it this year. And honestly, there's not a lot of phones, because you can find these for like 500. There's not a lot of phones at 500 that perform like this. So this is a really high performing phone for the price tag. I definitely do enjoy that. This also does have the Adreno 830 GPU. They're going at 840s already, so it's last year's, but still this is strong for gaming. Also, UFS 4.0 on the transfer down there, so this transfers quickly as well. You'll also get a little bit faster storage if you go with like the 512 gig option or whatever. The only con with this one is you can get it with 128 gigs. However, when I picked this up, I went with the higher storage tier because it does have, it was giving you the extra storage for free when you pre-order. So you might want to take advantage of those. Now, when I talk about the camera on this phone, let me bring in a lens for a sample. It just kind of feels like a mini almost dropped it right there. It does feel like a mini S25 Ultra. It really does. Until you start zooming and you realize I'm capped out at 3x, 10x, and then you realize the main camera is the only really strong one on here. The other ones are okay, but they're just not touching S25 Ultra. And that's the only con of these smaller phones. If you love what the S25 Ultra packs, but you just want it in a compact nature, the camera, you're not getting the same level, but you at least get 8K, you get 4K 60, so you wouldn't be noticing too much of a step back until you start zooming. That's the main thing. It's all about the zoom, I think, when we talk about these. Also, the front-facing camera, they're just not the top to me in this department. They do pretty good, but they don't have the highest resolution. They don't have the ultra widest angle on the front. It is 12 megapixels. It can do 4K 60, but this is just not the top on the front camera. This is, put it that way, it isn't. But it gets the job done. And that's kind of how I felt about these cameras. They have a lot of fun features and they get the job done. They're just, to me, not the best on the market, but they do produce very, very good results, especially on that main 50 megapixel camera. So I'm pretty happy with them overall. I'll show you a sample here. I took this when I was at a basketball game, I believe it was. But you'll just see, definitely, you can pull in some very, very crispy photos. So I don't feel like you're going to be missing too much if you decide to go with, the S25. And see, I was even able to get the half moon on this phone. Yeah, it's not as sharp as you might have seen on an S25 Ultra again, but I was able to get it. So, this is not like this is a pretty good camera system overall. And closing in on a year here, the battery life has been acceptable. It's 4,000 milliamp hour, but with the Samsung software on here, this phone hasn't lasted quite as long as I would like. This is one of those phones I feel like I gotta watch the battery a little bit more. Let's just put it that way. It doesn't last nearly as long as my iPhone 17 Pro Max, even the base 17. Even though it has the bigger battery, I don't know, it seems to give me a little bit less juice than a lot of other phones I tried this year. That isn't to say it doesn't last throughout the day. It does, but you got to be a little bit watching this one, because it just when you're using it heavy, it seems to drain a little bit quicker than I would like. It also doesn't charge the fastest out there, but it's not horrible. It's 25 watt wired, 15 watt wireless, so not the highest out there, but it ain't small 5 watt either, so it's acceptable. And let's wrap it up on the Galaxy S25 honest experience after a year later. To conclude, the phone has felt awesome to use. It's super fast, super light, super thin, beautiful blue. Cameras are high end, but they're just not the highest end, but they're still good. Triple camera too, the iPhone Air costs twice as much as this has one camera. The iPhone 17 costs more than this has 2 cameras. This gives you 3. So good value on the cameras. The front-facing camera needs an upgrade. It's not the newest anymore, but it's still acceptable. And I think it's going to be a great compact flagship as it continues to get cheaper. This is just an awesome all-around phone, considering its price tag. But it does leave some things to be desired, like a sharper display, a longer battery life, and maybe more zoom. So this is not your highest end, but it does do a lot of things well, and I really enjoyed it. I give this phone like a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10. It was pretty solid over the year. If you found this video helpful, entertaining, informing, do me a favor, click that like button for me. Subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe also for the upcoming S26 series. I'm going to be covering those phones when they come out. It's going to be very fun. So I'd love to have you around. And have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well. And peace.